sitting at one of my favorite parks, and I'm watching these ducks on a lake. Behind them is like this long stream, 'cause the wind is kind of slow today, so the water isn't making as big of waves to get rid of the trail that they leave behind. It's kind of funny to see how long it is when the lake is a little still, right? I suppose that's a good segue into what I think I'm going to make into a new series called Relationship Killers. Wow. It'll be kind of like the When Karmics Attacks videos that I did, but in a better energy. Definitely a better energy. And I'm thinking about what I was thinking about and kind of meditating on before I did this video, because it's been a while. I don't typically, there's sometimes when I jump in and do a video, but usually I've been mulling it over for a little while. I'm trying to get a little bit faster about just, I don't know, I like raw and real videos myself. I think that they're more genuine. We get to share more of our humanity with each other. I do like fancy stuff too. I think I like being a part of the raw and real group. But I was thinking about how, like, I've always been that person that people came to for relationship advice. Now, the funny thing is, on the other side of that, like, I've been very selective about my relationships. I've done a lot of things in non-relationship context that were negotiated that way, but I've only had a few, like, relationships, and it's still like, I guess somewhere in my own ego it feels like there's some sort of counterbalance, like, in order to be a strong relationship coach, shouldn't I have just had like a whole ton of relationships and stuff? But I realized, no, that's not necessarily true, and there are people who have that experience who can offer that sort of perspective. I'm the was it Venus and Capricorn person. Like, I want to help you learn to be a little more selective. I want to help you learn to have more inner peace and to, like, manifest relationships that are fun for you. That's who I want to be. And it makes me think about that long line, sort of like the trail that the ducks left. And it's gone now, which is funny, because even in my mind there was a little bit of rabbit trailing, cabot trailing. So, like, I've been that person that people typically always come to for relationship advice. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then that, when I was younger, a teen, I got into actually studying relationship psychology. And I just liked it too. Like, and it was really fun. And, like, that's how I got into a lot of the fun that I got into, which had me meet my DM and go through that 20-year relationship and stuff like that. So, and many others in there. And, like, I typically did not experience, like, I went through some hellish relationships a few times, but I don't think I experienced half of the troubles that a lot of people do, because I just was naturally inspired to get into relationship psychology as a young person. Like, I think I kind of circumnavigated a few, quite a handful of them. And now I'm looking out at that trail as if it was the duck on the water. And, like, I even got relationship coaching certified. Even my DM kept saying, no, you should talk about it. And my big thing was like, well, but we're not officially married. And I was going by, like, 3D indicators. Like, we were common law married and stuff, but I wanted it's not so much the piece of paper. I wanted the public excitement and acknowledgement of it. I wanted that sort of thing. But I realized, through going through the separation too, that why do I need lines like that? You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty amazing. I've got a lot of really beautiful things to say. And I know that I've helped a lot of people improve their relationships. And I'm ready to start helping more. And where I want to start is the thing that I see that gets so many people. Like, it's really, to me, it's the number one relationship killer, and it's insecurity. Now, we all have insecurities. Like, it's like that trail from the duck, like, and once you have, what's the phrase I keep hearing lately, once bitten twice shy. Like, a lot of people get like that. Like, let's say they get with somebody and that person cheats on them, then in all their future relationships they're worried about being cheated on again, and so they're, like, re-manifesting that. They're constantly looking for the signs that their partner might be cheating on them. Or if they were with someone who was an alcoholic or a drug addict or a criminal or something like it, then you're constantly looking for those things. Now, also, if you look back at your parental relationship, it's very likely that you can see the same signs in there. Like maybe you're constantly trying to avoid being with your mother, and this could be as a woman attracted to men or to other women, either way, or trying to avoid your father, you know, or you could attract somebody who maybe isn't your mother or your father or the person who hurt. Okay, my phone's being weird. I know we're still in the post shadow of Mercury retrograde, so bear with me if there's a little choppiness. In any case, those indicators are in there, then that's like, those are your insecurities. You want to work on that stuff though before you're in a relationship, ideally. Like, but that's not the way that our culture does things. Most of the time, like through various series of really unhealthy family dynamics, a lot of kids end up getting into dating and thinking about things like that at like 12, sometimes earlier. I've seen it earlier, and it really, like, it's not that it's like a bad thing, because some kids do that stuff a little sooner than others, but typically that's not an age where that should even be a thing. And usually we got into it because we were lonely, and or felt like maybe we were the scapegoat or the golden child, or, you know, the black sheep or anything like that in a family dynamic. And like you just wanted to feel like you belonged somewhere, so it was more of a survival mechanism thing. And so many people have gone through that when they've started their dating life in general, and it wasn't even like dating. Like, you know, how many of you can remember having like a relationship, let's say middle school, high school? Like, was it actually dating? Did you go steady? You know, did you go out on dates? Like, there's still a fair amount of people that have had those relationships. But if you're watching this video, I would bet you're probably more on this stream, where it's like you probably rushed into, oh, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, we're gonna hold hands and try to do all the things that basically you think that either the adults are doing or you see in the medias or things like that. And then you're automatically already talking about like really big commitment stuff that really at that age, like, we should have been thinking more about what adventures can I have when I'm 20, and where do I want to go to college, and where do I want to live, and like what kinds of things do I want to feel about myself or have other people say about me, or like, you know, where do I want to see my face up on a big poster, or my brand, or my thing, or how can I improve the world in some way, where, you know, what do I want to give like decades of my time to, and, you know, like things like that. I don't know, that's maybe my satirizing side, but that's what I feel like is that what we should have been doing in middle school and high school while we're learning and doing things like that, is thinking about, you know, what kind of adventures we could have with the rest of our lives. But instead, most of us were already thinking about relationships and social dynamics, and like who's the most popular, what clique is where, and how do you survive that, and how do you not get bullied, and, you know, like we're doing that stuff, we're doing relationship stuff. And so we dive right into relationships. We typically, without even knowing, repeat various dynamics that are not good that we have with one or both of our parents or other adults in our lives, and then our relationships continue on that way. So don't feel bad if you've come to this video and you are in a relationship. It can still help you even if you're in a relationship and you want to turn things around. I'm just saying it is it's easier, it's healthier, and it's clearer if you work on this stuff while being independent, while being single, in terms of like, it doesn't, and don't misconstrue, like, that doesn't mean that you don't have any friendships or that you don't have any fun or you don't do things like that. It's a different vibe. I think a lot of people these days have such deep attachment traumas, and especially with the thing going around that we will not name, like, people are scared to lose more like physical connection, but you can get plenty of it without having to be in like a serious committed relationship or trying to go through and doing dating. And it's better if you do, you can see it clearer. And it's like, even if that takes some time, even if that takes some months, some years, things like that, everything after that will be better. You know what I mean? And then you won't have to kind of like cause tower moments to try to rebuild what you're, you know, what you may have been in, or trying to like pivot in relationship, which you can do. Lots of people do it, and I no problem doing that. I want to help people that are in relationships, help turn them around. But where that starts is with your security level, your emotional security level in relationships. Okay, so because of the ways that we've been conditioned, where we typically get right into relationships, and then we kind of end up working out our childhood traumas and our work traumas and school traumas and things like that with other people. Like, we develop these insecurities that are like that duck trail, or that are like my length of experience with various different relationship dynamics. Like, it trails out and it follows us until we become conscious of it. So you really want to stop and look at what are your insecurities, and how much of your time do you spend worrying about it? Because I tell you what, like, I experienced a part of a conversation between two guys the other day, two, as far as I know, hetero cis guys. One was a Sag and one was an Aquarius, and I love it because they very much fit those. So the Sag was talking about, well, the Aquarius brought the Sag out to talk about a recent breakup that happened with the Sag. The part of the conversation that kind of made me giggle was like the Sag, and he was older both than me and the other guy, but he's very, very youthful, you can tell. And he was saying that the woman that he broke up with, like, he fell in love with her heart, but he just didn't feel excited and passionate about her every day. And he wants a partner that he feels like every single day he feels passionate to want to go home to them, and he's thinking about them all day long while he's at work and things like that. And like, it was very sweet and very romantic in many ways. But even so, then the Aquarian, he goes, well, but that's not realistic. It's so funny because it's so dry. Like, I would have gone somewhere down in the middle, because, like, I mean, it's beautiful that's what he wants. But the Aquarian is also not wrong, and he started talking about how that's like, it's not realistic to assume that your relationship will always 100% of the time be passionate, intense, and you're always thinking about them. You're gonna have some moments when you clash. You're gonna have some moments when other people interact with your relationship and create various different situations that you may not have foreseen. Like, and if there's children involved, there's all sorts of stuff that goes on in there. Like, no relationship is going to be 100% like every day, 365 days of the year for every year, going to be uber passionate. Those relationships that you may experience of other people or things like that, the relationships that are passionate every day, they went through the preliminary shit first, and they realized that was where they needed to want to do it. Like, they needed to want the relationship every day. Those are the people that are passionate about it. Everybody else is actually in the honeymoon stage of their relationship, and it's limerence. It's like, look it up. It's not actually love. It's a series of psychological and biological chemicals designed to do various different things, and it's also based on conditioning, because the honeymoon period for, like, let's say, like, if we went with the healthiest of healthy people, a good honeymoon phase would last 2 to 5 years, right? Bet you didn't think that. Most people think 3 months, 6 months, a year. No, like 2 to 5 years, right? The honeymoon stage. And that doesn't mean that it's always passionate during then either, but like, it's because there's emotional security in there, that there's not this big rush to, like, get to the next step, do the next thing, or, like, as I've heard a lot of people do, like, trap them in. You got to get them to marriage, or it's not a real commitment, or what about kids, or things like that. Like, you know how much life you have to live? You know how much things you could do in a year with another human being? Like, you know how much there is to learn about them? And then, did you know that every human being psychologically is a new person about every 5 years? Our core typically stays the same. We have kind of a core self, but we change about every 5 years. So when you experience those fights, or you see people fighting, or you see it in the movies where they're like, "You've changed, I don't even know who you are anymore," that really happens because people change. And if we grow in different directions, sometimes it takes the relationship away from itself, because we grew in different directions. So, like, there's so many reasons not to rush. And I think that's such a Capricorn thing to say. And I know that if you're in a space where you do feel a lot of insecurities, you probably feel like, oh my gosh, but that's crazy. Like, you're telling me that I need to be alone romantically. Like which what I'm really saying is you need to romance yourself. Let's be clear about that. But like you're telling me quickly defined that I need to be alone to work on my insecurities, and that then when I'm in a relationship, not to immediately start daydreaming about a fairy tale wedding and like rushing things in, or will they cheat on me or anything like that. Then what am I supposed to do? Well, how about you enjoy your time and you work on learning about emotional insecurities and like really start going towards each of those. And you can do this while in relationship too. Just recognize that if you are in a relationship where you feel insecure, you have likely manifested a partner who is also dealing with the same, at least amount of insecurities, even if it's not the same kinds of insecurities. Like they probably have the same amount and you met in that vibration, and they might not be ready to do that stuff just yet. Depends on their conditioning and where they're at with things. If you have faith that they are, then just do your work and have faith that they will catch on, or they will get interested, or they will want to know, or they will just naturally grow along with you. Like this is the thing about emotional security. Like you find the faith in yourself that the people that you have chosen and the things that you feel called to do will work out. And even if like you end up in a situation where you start growing and working on your insecurities, and that creates insecurities in the partner that you're with, like insecure people typically get to a place to where they're like, well, if you can't grow with me, then you got to go. I've even been there before. We're growing apart and I want to do this and you're still really insecure and you're fighting these things, so we got to end it. That's not the only actual way to do it, though. Like, you could just continue on doing your thing and not worrying about ultimatums or relationship statuses or things like that, and like you can still stick with your morals in terms of relationships, whether it's romantic or friendship or business or any of that. You could still stick with you and still keep growing. And where it really matters is in your mind and heart. Like, if you're in a space where you're like, they're never going to get it, they're never going to get up there, this is just dragging me down or holding me back, or you have people around you that are telling you like, oh, you're rescuing them all the time, or you're not doing enough here, or you got to pick up the pace there, or you can never rest or put things down or be immature yourself, like any number of things, like that's what you're going to manifest with that. That's insecurity to the hilt. Like, if you and you really, like, in order to have any healthy relationship, you need to have people around you who are capable of healthy relationships. So if you have people telling you to be afraid of what the other person might do, or to be afraid they might hurt you like that last person, or like someone who hurt them, or like your parents or their parents or anything, like, get those people out of your vibration. Like, I'm not saying you got to cut anybody off, but definitely get yourself some healthy boundaries, because the people you hang out with are the people you become like you share their vibration. And like, you want to be in a place in a relationship where you're comfortable with what happens, you're comfortable with the growth, you're comfortable with what comes through, and you have the ability to hold healthy boundaries without getting into those ultimatums where it's like, oh, if you don't meet my standards, you're gone. Like, you wouldn't like somebody being like that with you in a relationship, so you definitely don't want to pass that back to somebody else. You want to be in a space of unconditional love, where it's like, no, you can grow and you can have your experiences, and I will hold my boundaries when I am not comfortable with whatever thing that is that we were doing, and I'm comfortable with distance and time and space and things like that. Like, to me, relationships, especially when you start getting towards the time where you might think about marriage, like, that's a sacred thing. It's your walks beside. It's somebody that you want to walk through life with, and that is a very different thing than just signing a piece of paper that gives you tax and insurance discounts and some sort of weird bragging rights. Like, I don't know, it's different. Like relationships really should be walked in a more sacred way, in my opinion, and they're much healthier when we do it that way. And so you want to look at where your insecurities, because like think about that Sag and Aquarius, right? That Sag is What's funny is they probably both do the opposite. I bet you that Aquarius probably is much like too logical in his relationships, because I know a lot of Aquarians that have kind of his vibration too. I'm not saying for sure, but just my experience of astrology in it. But let's look at the two sides of that too. Like one side just wants all the passion and the emotion and the intensity all the time, and the other side wants it to be like the driest, most logical, healthiest thing ever. Well, as a Capricorn, I can tell you, because it's earth and water mixed, that both are important, and Capricorns are the social architects too. So, like, you want a good balance of any energies that you have in your relationships. And that means that you're going to have times that test your emotional security. And really, like, I can say it is a profound amount of people that I've seen turn down like the hottest looking dude or the hottest looking woman because they could tell that they weren't emotionally secure. And it's like, it really is one of those things too. Like, you could meet somebody who's very, very attractive, and if they spend all of their time talking about how people have hurt them, or life has spit on them, or they haven't had breaks or good luck or anything, or how they're not smart or things like that, like that suddenly somebody who may have outwardly been very beautiful or very handsome can become very unattractive very quickly, and suddenly you're noticing, that something here or something there that starts to fit with your perspective of the energy that they put out, right? So think about how hot as fuck it is when you walk up and you meet somebody that is emotionally secure, right? They're beautiful on the outside and on the inside, and your experience of them is pleasant and smooth and confident, and they're not in a rush to do things. They want to get to know you. They talk to you. Like, be that person that you want to be, or that you want to have. Be the person you want to be. Be the person that you want to attract into your relationships. And also recognize too that a lot of times opposite love languages will attract towards each other. The whole opposites attract thing happens a lot. And so your love language, like, if you're the type of person that really loves a clean home and you have like acts of service love language, you're going to be looking for a partner that would keep your home clean every day, so that if you go out and work a job, you come home and it's clean. Or even if you, like, say you're the one that takes care of the kids, maybe they clean it, I don't know. But if that's what you want, you have to recognize that, like, unless you're specifically looking for somebody whose love language is also acts of service, you might get somebody who, like, theirs is quality time. So they want to, hello, Brianne. Their love language would be spending that time with you, maybe cleaning with you. You know what I mean? Like, things like that. But we still, even in opposites attracting, like attracts like. So you have both. It's a spiritual lesson that both can be true. So you're going to have times when, like, your partner might have connections with other people. You know how unattractive it is to be in a relationship with somebody, man or woman, that is like constantly worried about that person you're talking to? Like, in a relationship, you want trust. And so, like, that's where insecurity, another example of where it's the number one relationship killer, is like somebody that's constantly worried about who's that person that you talk to, who did you hug, who did you talk to today, why did you say it that way, what did you tell them, and this and that. And you know what, as humans too, we're going to have relationships with many people, and it's actually healthier if we don't have all of our shit like piled into our relationship, especially if you're in a monogamous relationship rather than polyamorous, where you kind of have a little more split ability to have your emotional support. But like, it's good to have many strong emotional relationships with people. Now, that doesn't mean that, shenanigans are okay. Like, if you have somebody that's like, nah, that'll be for another thing. I was just gonna say, like, don't accept bad behavior just because multiple healthy emotional relationships are good. Like, you know the difference, and they know the difference. But you can see in there, like, being insecure in your relationship that will manifest the end of that relationship. You will drive each other nuts, and you will likely have picked someone that, even if they're better at hiding it than you, they are still also going to be playing detective and constantly looking for the clues. And usually people will tell you what their insecurities are when they get into a relationship. So many people start out a relationship that way, talking about how they've just been hurt. Like, I heard a guy the other day, somebody asked him about if he was up for dating and he started talking about a big thing going on with the person he'd been with, who, like, I guess a baby wasn't his, like a child he'd been raising thought was his, wasn't his. And, like, I mean, I'm happy that people are honest and they put where they're at emotionally, but that's not usually about creating a boundary. It's usually about, like, telling the sad focus of your story, and then, like, you connect with someone else who's been, they're like, oh, I've been through that, or I had that happen on this end of it, and then you connect through, like, trauma bonding, like, and it's like, it'd be much better to say something like, I'm not really available for relationships right now, and to save that other stuff for when you already have gotten to know somebody, you know what I mean? Like, because you don't want to connect with somebody in trauma. It's not necessarily bad to have people you connect with that have been through similar traumas, but your aim in emotional security should be to connect with other emotionally secure people, or people who are more emotionally secure than you are, and then to practice good emotional security habits. And part of that is getting into that space where you have faith in you, that people don't want to hurt you. You're not destined to always have bad relationships. The world is not full of people who always trick you and hurt you. You want to really work on reframing how you think about things. Because any beautiful relationship with anybody that you may have been compatible with, like, it can go to shit if it is full of insecurities. And insecurities can come up in all sorts of different ways. I mean, it doesn't just have to be just people who cheat or do crime or things like that. It can be people who get abusive. It can be people who are neglectful. It can be, like, insecurities can show up in, like, lack of respect for space, like both personal space and space around a house. It can be people who are, like, either really, really messy or, like, anally retentively clean. Like, it can be hoarding. It can be overworking or underworking, things like that. Even chronic pain can turn into different, it usually manifests from insecurities. And not saying it's not real. I have chronic pain, but you can manifest it through years of insecurities. It really does a number on the body until you have something that you're sitting there looking at going, fuck, but that, and financial insecurities, things like that too. Like, if you've got shadow work to do about how you feel about money and things like that can definitely get in there. And so many people that are insecure are the ones that rush into having kids and getting married when they really aren't even sure who they are yet or what their insecurities are. And that creates more and more of those cycles. Like, so insecurity is not just like a one-on-one relationship killer. It really has affected our entire society. So it's a really good thing to stop and look at and say, you know what, how do I navigate my relationships? Think about your job. Do you go to your work because you like going to work, or do you feel like you like the people that you work with? Or are you constantly thinking about, is that person going to screw me over? Is that person doing it? Or, man, I'm doing twice as much work as that person over there. Or, like, how is your emotional security with work? And then think about your emotional security with family. Are you excited to go and see your family when you go to see them, to talk to them, to interact with them? Or do you feel like you're worried about that thing they might say, or that thing they might pick on you about, or that they might bully you about something, or they might ask you for more money, or they might, look at the vibration of it, and you can tell whether or not you have strong emotional security in those areas. And then look at your relationships. Like, how many, what percentage of time of the relationships you've had, or the one that you're in, have you spent worried about something? It could be worried about money. It could be worried about health. It could be worried about, cheating and social dynamics. It could be worried about what other people think. It could be worried about abuses. Like, whatever it is, if you have spent, I'm going to say anything more than 20%, a really low amount, anything more than 20% of your relationships to date worried about things, then you have been majorly insecure in your relationships. And even if you're good at, like, putting on a strong face, it still shows to other people. And, like, you can see it when you're willing to look for it. And when you can start to look at that stuff, you can start to alchemize it and release it. And you're going to notice whether you're in a relationship or whether you're thinking about or anything like that, that all of your relationships change. And when that starts to change and you start to feel emotionally secure, you can start to picture yourself in relationships with good people that don't have a history of cheating, that, or maybe they went through some stuff, but they're like, they've already found their awakening, like like you start to realize you really do rendezvous and meet up with people who are on a similar vibration as you. So when you base your emotional security on how you feel about yourself, and you realize that then you'll attract people who feel about themselves the same way you feel about yourself, you get more confidence in there. And then when you are in a relationship, you're not this person that is constantly worried about micromanaging the relationship, or whether the other person is micromanaging the relationship, and you're not constantly focused on like the limerence things, like that constant passion every day sort of thing, but you're also not overly logical on like, this is exactly what the median statistic says about this thing. Like, you can flow, you can imagine it in your mind being with some, like, you can recognize people who are too hurt to be in relationship at the moment, and you can recognize people who are whole, and like, hey, I like your story, you might be someone fun to interact with, and see if it might become a long-term committed relationship. Like, you're more relaxed, and then people tend to leave your life a lot less that way, and then you have fewer abandonment issues, fewer insecurities of that nature, and you can flow through things. Once you get to that space and you can start to meet other people that are also in that space, then you end the cycles that were passed on to you unfairly, and unfairly passed on to your parents and their parents, and, etc. And then we see much less like relationships ending because of like constant insecurity about things like, oh, the ex, and oh, the futures, and oh, the job, and oh, the health, and oh my gosh, the economy. Like, don't let external factors determine how you feel about yourself or your relationship. Alright, y'all, this was my first go at one of these videos. Let me know what you think, and if you'd like more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.